How'd you make out on that exercise? What happens if there was church oversight by the church over the savings groups? What would happen? What are the positives of that potentially, and what are the negatives? Well, we're going to discuss that in this next section. And you can see in task 3B, Chalmers gives you their viewpoint, and this is the same viewpoint that we have by peace savings groups in terms of church oversight, and we discourage that, and you'll see why. Let me read the statement in 3B. This is what the facilitator would read to the participants, to the congregation, as they're describing what a savings group ministry can do in their church. So task 3B. Listen to the following considerations for the relationship between the savings groups and the church. And then you've got a hairline box. This is expected that this would be pre-printed out, that you'd be posting this on the wall for everyone to see, and the facilitator would then read this out. Savings groups work because members follow the policies and decisions they make. No one can just walk into a savings group and demand his or her way. The members of the savings groups have agreed upon rules that guide their activities. The members of the group decide what their group is going to be and how it will work. They are the owners of this group. The savings group does not belong to the facilitator, does not belong to the church, or the facilitating organization. Ownership belongs to the saving group's members, who manage their own group and make their own decisions. This is important in understanding a proper relationship between the group and the church. An appropriate relationship between the church and the group is needed for two reasons. So here are the two key reasons Chalmers is going to give us of why they want to keep them separate. They don't want oversight by the church over the savings group. And here's why. Number one, to protect the church from receiving blame for problems within the group. You can imagine that if problems arose, and they will arise, there will be conflict from time to time within a group. Remember, you have 30 different people, and they're going to have different approaches maybe to different problems that the group might face. And if those problems happen and there's conflict, it'd be very easy for the group to blame the church if church was overseeing the group. But in this case, the group can't go running to the church. The group owns itself. The members own the group. They make the decisions. They govern. So they can't blame problems on anyone but themselves. So it forces them to grapple with and find solutions to problems. So that's the reason number one. We try to keep oversight separated between the church and the group. The second reason that Chalmers gives is this: to protect group members from the church wrongfully using its authority, right? So you can imagine if a pastor led a group, let's say, and it's a pastor leading a group of members of the congregation, everything the pastor said should be done would be done, right? That people would kind of follow what the pastor says. And sometimes that pastor may make bad decisions or give bad direction, and people would feel bad about their savings group. We don't want that kind of conflict. Again, this puts the onus of governance on the members themselves who own the group. It's really to protect the group members themselves from wrongly blaming or using the authority of the church. So then it concludes, for these reasons, we think it is wise that the groups do not elect church pastors or church leaders as leaders of the group. Now, some of you may be asking, well, what about the pastors and the leaders? Can they be part of groups? And this is what we found in the field in Rwanda. The best thing to do is encourage the pastors to form their own group. Get like-minded pastors from the different churches in the area to form a savings group of just pastors or of just leaders. And often we've kept those separate. Again, just pastors, there's no conflicts of interest there. They're separated churches, and you have different pastors as members of a group, or the same with the church leadership, right? People who are in leadership functions within the church, let them form their own group. This actually is a huge positive, because what happens is other groups, other people within the church see their pastors doing savings group ministry. They see their leadership doing savings group ministry. And this provides for two things. One, it allows the leadership and the pastors to appreciate what people who are participating or part of a savings group, what they're going through, the positives, the negatives, the struggles, the issues that have to be contended with. And so it allows them to understand it and maybe provide counseling on that. And second, it allows them to be a tremendous witness to saving groups, to allow them to encourage saving groups, because they appreciate what it takes to conduct and to rightly perform all the duties that are associated with being in a savings group. So there's been tremendous success in Rwanda. I can tell we have a lot of pastor groups, a lot of church leadership groups, and they've been very, very successful, and they're a great witness to their congregations. So you see that we follow task 3 with some apply questions. You can see the carrots there, the arrows. In your own words, what did you hear about the relationship between the church and the savings group? So that's an apply question, right? That basically we should keep the two separate. The church should not oversee directly savings group. They're separate entities. So you might think of it as you've got the church, and you have what's often called a parachurch organization, or a small entity outside the church called the savings group. All these people go to the church, most of them do anyway, but they're organized outside of the church itself. There's certainly a symbiotic relationship between the two, but this savings group is outside of the church. It's fostered, encouraged by the church, facilitated by church facilitators, but it does kind of exist outside of the church. Now, the other apply question is, what questions do you have about what you've heard? And then also, what are some practical ways that you can see your church maintaining a good relationship with savings groups and without taking over too much power? So again, these questions are apply questions, forcing people to think through the relationship between the church and the savings group. Now, in task 4, we come to considering how we're going to promote these savings groups within the church. Consider the possibility of promoting savings and credit associations in your community. You can see tasks 4A and 4B, all the way through 4D here, talk about how we're going to promote savings groups to the church so that people raise their hand and say, yes, I want to join a savings group. I want to join the ministry. So you can see there's 4 steps here to how you implement and promote and recruit and implement savings groups. Number 1, you share and pray about them as a church, right? Share and pray. Number 2, you have to recruit and orient. That's what's happening here with the facilitator, is recruiting, is orienting people to what the savings group ministry is about. In essence, trying to get people to say, yes, I want to be part of a savings group. Third, guide them through policy making, and that's section B in group formation. And then 4, you start the meeting and start saving together. So you start meeting together, you form the groups, you start meeting together and saving together. So those are essentially the 4 elements of how you implement savings and credit associations, savings groups within the local church. And that's what the facilitator is doing in section A. Over about an hour and a half, they're going through all of this material. So if you look at a summary of what we've covered here in session 2, we've covered several things. We've talked about how to use the handbook itself. We've talked about the overall organization of the handbook in 4 sections, section A, B, C, and D, which is church orientation, group formation, and section B. Section C is group leader training, and section D is ongoing meetings. Then we also talked about the approach to training that Chalmers takes, using lessons and tasks, and using the 4 A's of adult education, of anchoring and adding and applying and taking something away. So we talked about that approach. And then we talked about the visual cues in the format itself. Bold boxes and bold type and regular type and italic types and thin lines for posters that need to go up on the wall. So we talked about all those visual cues in the book itself. Then the big second part of session 2 was section A itself. We just walked through the one lesson in session A, which is around church orientation. We began with the 4 key relationships that we've discussed throughout. We talked about Colossians chapter 1, verses 19 and 20, that this is a ministry of reconciliation. The Savings Group ministry is a ministry of reconciling broken people separated from the Lord, to become more aligned to His will. And then we talked about the 3 different types of savings groups: a ROSCA, a straight savings group, and an ASCA. We talked about the 3 characteristics of Christ-centered, church-centered savings groups, being group policies and leaders and meetings, and that this separates these savings groups from past experiences, other types of savings groups participants may be familiar with. We lastly talked about the relationship between the church and the savings group itself, that we want them, separate in a sense, that there's not direct oversight by the church over the savings group. And finally, we concluded with the 4 steps it takes to promote and orient savings groups within the congregation and to get them going. So what would happen from here is the facilitator would set a date for Section B that they're going to do with a Section B meeting on group formation, which is that full day meeting. We talked about it being 6 to 8 hours, where they're going to go through selecting the type of group they're going to be. They're going to go through group policies for that group. They're going to elect leadership for the group, and that takes the better part of a day. And that's what we'll cover in future sessions. See you then.